Hey, my Stampin' friends, Jody Brechbill, Stampin' Queen here. I have had a couple questions about our mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, or I like to call it the Baby Boss. So when I get some questions, and they seem to be the same questions, I thought, well, maybe I will do a video for you guys. So if any of you guys have purchased the Baby Boss and are maybe having some struggle or not quite sure how it works, maybe this video will help you out a little bit. So it is featured in our May 2021 through April 2022 annual catalog, and you can find the baby and its dad, the Big Boss, as I like to call them, on page 152 and 153. So when you purchase your little boss, it is going to come with the machine itself, and it is tiny, okay? This width here is about 3 inches wide. So it is just, it holds right in your hand. It's very lightweight. It's very compact, folds up for easy storage. So it is a great addition to your crafting. Then you're going to get your plates as well. So you should have a plate 1, which is your base plate. Plate 2, whoops, they're backwards. Plate 2 of those are your clear cutting plates. And then of course you'll have plate 3 and plate 4. So these will come in handy with your embossing folders, okay? So it does come with these plates. You should have those with your mini machine. Also keep in mind, it may come with the handle detached, and you need to make sure that you do add the handle if it's not already on. I can't remember, it's been so long since I've got it. So the main question that I get is, do I need the Baby Boss? I do a lot of crafting. I am what we call an avid crafter, and so I do prefer the Big Boss or the standard cut and emboss machine. It's a substantial machine, and it works with everything, all of the embossing folders, all of the dies. The mini has some limitations, so it can only work with the small dies, the 3-inch wide dies, and it can only work with select embossing die cuts, so our metal dies. So for instance, these dies right here are obviously too big to fit through the mini machine. So it does have some limitations. If you are an avid crafter, my suggestion would be to invest in the big machine. If you have limited space, you want to have something just to pick up and travel, I do love the fact that I use this during videos because I don't always have to get my big machine out and ready to go. It goes nicely on crafting retreats and different things like that because it is small and compact. But keep in mind, it is extremely light. And so sometimes you do have to use be a little heavy-handed with this machine to hold it in place while you're cranking through because it doesn't have a lot of weight to it. All right, so with the embossing, one thing I do want to share. So if you're not sure what works and what does not work, what we have done in our catalogs is we will put a mini symbol beside the dies that will work with the mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So if you don't see a mini symbol, that means that die is too big to run through your machine. So we tried to help out in case you should have any confusion as to how big those dies are and what does work and what doesn't. So let's open this guy up, and we are going to do a little bit of die cutting. So for die cutting, I do need my base plate, my number 1, which says right here to use with thin dies. So I've got base plate number 1, and then I also need to use 2 number 2s. So I always like to make one base plate or one clear cutting plate my bottom that I cut on, and then I try to keep the top just the one that runs through so it doesn't get too badly damaged. The other thing that I use quite often with the mini is a roll of washi tape. Masking tape, painter's tape, washi tape, these all work because we don't have a magnet with this one to hold those dies in place. So let me go ahead and show you how to do die cutting real quick. So I have got a real red ink pad here, and I'm working with Valentine's Day. So I'm gonna go ahead and stamp myself a real red heart on some scrap paper. And then, like I said, I need plate 1, plate 2, and there's my cardstock, grab myself the die from here. And because I have my image stamped, I don't want it to move. So I get it lined up, and then I'm just gonna take some washi tape. All right, sir, work with me here. I just put hand lotion on and my hands get a little sticky. So I am just going to tape that down. It shifted on me just a smidge. There we go. So it's taped down to my plate and to my die, my plate, and my cardstock are taped together. Now, one thing that I have noticed is that these edges are beveled. Okay, so we have a beveled edge here, a beveled edge here, and a beveled edge here. What I have found is best for me is to actually offset them when I start to run it through. Instead of having it nice and even where it seemed like the roller can't quite catch the edges because it's beveled, I just offset them a little bit whenever I go to run them through. So I do need to give a little bit of a push to catch it. And now I do need to hold this. So one thing that I have heard is that it moves around on you, and it will, because it is tiny. It just weighs almost nothing. So I do stand up and I hold my pressure on the handle when I crank that through, and I crank it through very slowly and very gently. I probably would say I'm a little bit rougher with the Big Boss, the big machine. This one's all plastic. The handle's plastic, everything's plastic inside there. And so I do run things through nice and slowly. So there we go. There we have our little die cut. Now you want to be cautious with your washi tape because you don't want that to tear your image. So there we go, a nice little die cut for us. Now, let's talk about embossing folders. So we have two different embossing folders. We have standard embossing folders, and we have 3D embossing folders. Can you see the thickness difference? So this one is nice and thin. This one is a 3D, so it is going to give a different, really thick embossed image. You do have to run them through differently, so it's important to know what you're working with. So let's go ahead. Do I have some scrap paper here? Let me grab a piece. Well, I don't really need a piece of scrap paper. You just need to know how this machine works. So when you are using, this one says right here, using with standard embossing folders. Standard embossing folder is the thin one. So what you need is your plate 1. So we've got plate 1 right here. We need our embossing folder, and then we need plate 3 to go on top. So this is your sandwich. Plate 1, embossing folder, and plate 3. And again, I offset them just a little bit, and I carefully run them through, holding some pressure there because it does want to slip around. So depending on the surface you have this sitting on, it does have grippy feet. Finish running that through. So you can see he does have grippy feet, but they're tiny little grippy feet. So if you are on a very, very smooth surface, you may find that it wants to shift a little bit, and you will have to hold pressure to hold it in place. Now, one thing that I do in my studio is I use my Stampin' Pierce mat. So if I have a slippery surface, which I do, right here we're working on a hard wooden table, but in my studio, I have the plastic buffet tables, and the plastic is very slippery. So I use the Stampin' Emboss mat, and that just gives it a little bit of grip on there, okay? So now we have a thick embossing folder. So there's our 3D embossing folder. So for 3Ds, we need plate number 4. Use with 3D embossing folders. So we need our plate 1. So there's our base. We need our thick embossing folder, and then we need plate 4. So there is our sandwich, okay? So I wanna, again, I have them offset just a little bit. I push it in and I start to turn. Very carefully, slowly, gently, and evenly, I run that through the embossing machine. Okay, so I can honestly tell you guys that those are my little tips and tricks. I have not had any problems at all with mine. I have heard some people saying that sometimes they're turning the handle and it won't grab the sandwich. And I will tell you, just offset everything a little bit and see if that doesn't make a difference. Also, when you go to start it, make sure you are giving it a push. So you can see I am starting to push it from the back and I can feel it grabbing. Okay, so I can feel that it wants to grab that. So a little push from the back, hold here, offset those plates, and see if that does not help you guys out. Of course, my friends, if you should ever have any questions, any concerns, any problems, please contact me. I will be happy to reach out to Stampin' Up and see if we can take care of any issues that you might have. But hopefully this video gives you a couple little tips and tricks on working with the mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, or as I lovingly call him, my baby boss. All right, everybody, thanks so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day.